Fly chick coming through. Nice to meet you. Glad you came too. Like you stand when you know you got moves. You spit game and you know you spit.
Hello and welcome to the Fastlane Collective. Thank you so much for joining us this week and happy St. Patrick's Day. Well, when this goes out, it will be yesterday when St. Patrick's Day happened, but happy St. Patrick's Day. I'm Irish, so this is a great holiday for me, and Daniela came prepared. If you're not watching, Daniela is wearing an amazing, how do I even describe it, headpiece? Like, you look
Yeah,
great.
thank you. It's sparkly. It's got four-leaf clovers on it. It's green. It's everything that is St. Patrick's Day in a headband. I realized I wasn't wearing green, and then I was like, okay, I need to surprise Yaz in some way when I come and join on. So I was like, okay, I know I have this one headband that I got for like £1 last year on the day after St. Patrick's Day, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to save that for next year. And then I forgot to wear it to work today, even though I probably would have got some weird looks, but it's fine. I got back and I was like, I have to put it on, and here we go. Here it is in all its glory. We
That
can move
pound was worth it for my surprise when you came on. You look fabulous. You look great as always. Unfortunately, Brianna cannot join us this week, but don't worry, she will be back with us next week and you will not see the last of her, so do not worry. But to get in to the Australian Grand Prix, oh my gosh, so much happened, so much just, I mean, my tired brain could not handle the Grand Prix, but we have just a couple wee news segments to go over first. So, firstly, Oscar Piastri has signed a multi-contract deal, which is just a multi-year contract deal, which is just amazing. The correct contract for him to have for McLaren. Daniela, what is kind of your thoughts and feelings for Oscar and this deal with McLaren?
It made me quite excited because I thought this might be like the push Oscar needs going into the season. Knowing that his team are fully backing him until the end of this decade was probably a nice feeling to have, like going into your home Grand Prix, the first race of the season. I thought, okay, this is looking good for Oscar, especially with like the whole, are they going to choose Lando or are they going to choose Oscar? Like, who's going to be the number one driver? It must be quite nice to know that Oscar feels comfortable in that team and that they are seeing what he's doing and like that, and they want to continue that relationship on. I think you could arguably say that McLaren have one of the strongest, if not the strongest, lineup this year, and they have done for the last few years. So I think that they themselves are like, okay, we know what we've got is good. Let's keep this going. Hopefully, we're not going to have too many dramas between Lando and Oscar this year because they might regret their decision. But I think it just made his home Grand Prix just a little bit sweeter.
Definitely, 100% agree. I'm just, I'm an Oscar fan at heart. I have to say, I'm a bit biased, and I was really happy to see this decision made as well. I mean, Oscar, time and time again, proves how much of an amazing driver he is, especially with how much hype he had around him coming into Formula One. So he really does prove his worth, and it's just overall really great to see. So, our last little bit of F1 news off the track, which again is usually quite different for us because usually our news segments are so long because usually so much happens, but most of the drama stayed on the track this week. But our last bit of news is Stefano Domenicali will continue as Formula One president until 2029, which, how do you feel about this, Danielle? I know some people with Formula One presidents and FIA and kind of anyone in Formula One who kind of does all the decision making behind the scenes, a lot of people do not like how F1 is ran. So kind of what is your thoughts and feelings towards him staying until 2029?
I'm not the biggest Stefano Domenicali fan. I think he has come out and said some things that I personally don't agree with. He is kind of been anti against women in this sport. And he just doesn't align with my values. So I kind of wasn't that best pleased. I thought, okay, maybe there could be someone a little bit better who could maybe take in. I don't know who that is. Like maybe like someone like Susie Wolf, who actually does want women in this sport. But I just thought like they were going to go in a different direction, and I kind of thought that his time was up. So it did actually surprise me when they announced it. I kind of wasn't expecting it because I didn't think that everyone was going to vote him back in and that he was going to get to stay. What are your thoughts, Jazz? Were you kind of feeling the same thing?
Definitely, yeah. Like we've had conversations before of wanting Susie Wolf to have either be head of the FIA or head of the Formula One in general. And I was really hoping that maybe, oh, like this could be the chance, this could be it. But unfortunately, not. I think, a lot of people voted him back in because, again, there still is a lot of men in these decision-making boardrooms where, there isn't really a female voice to kind of, I don't know, call him out, I guess, which is really disappointing. But I do hopefully in the future, it's like my dream to have Susie Wolf run Formula One, and I'm still clinging on to that. Yeah, surprised as well. I really didn't think that he would be staying, but that's Formula One for you. Always surprising me somehow. So moving on to the actual race. Australia, you were a wild one, and you usually are. My tired brain was kept wide awake watching this race. First, before we even get into anything, Daniela, what was just your reaction to watching the race? Like, I know you watched it a bit after it was live, so try and like stay away from seeing results and just how were you feeling?
I was really excited for this race. All I knew was that it was good because Yaz, you messaged me and said, wow, that was amazing. We have a lot to talk about. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. I'm glad that you've said that because sometimes if I miss a race and you message and you're like, it wasn't that great, I'm like, oh, I don't want to have to watch it before we do the podcast. Because when it's live, like you don't know that it's going to be bad, so it's like exciting. But when you know it's not a good race, you're like, oh, do I really have to catch up? And then I'm like, yes, no, I do. Otherwise, I'm not going to know what I'm talking about. With this, I literally sat there and I was like, yes, okay, it's going to be good. And then I watched it I think it was like a couple hours after it finished airing. I think it was around like 7:30 that Sky then showed it again, like in the morning. And I had just missed the formation lap. But they were just about to start the race. And I had already missed some chaos. But overall, I thought it was really, really great way to kind of start the season. Unfortunately, I don't think some drivers would agree with me because they didn't have the best start. But overall, I think it was a really fab way to kind of bring the excitement to the season and kind of show, like this is going to be a big year, which I think we all predicted anyway. But this kind of like confirmed it for me.
Yeah, I think this year, like, I am even more excited for the next race. Yeah, my whole reaction to watching this race, again, I was watching this with my mom. We both got up very, very early in the morning and we watched it, and we were trying to be as quiet as we could because my brother was upstairs sleeping, and we were like, oh my God, what is happening? Like, throughout the entire race. And yeah, it kept us awake. We were not dozing off at all. So, first off, let's talk about McLaren. Lando Norris, first win of the season. Wow. I kind of thought maybe Max might have creeped up, but he just could not catch Lando at the end. And we'll talk about Oscar in a wee minute. My Australian boy. So McLaren showing potential with dominance, especially in quali. Daniela, your thoughts on McLaren this race? I mean, they put on a show and showing that they mean business this season.
Well, they kind of showed that from the get-go. Starting like first and second on the grid, complete lockout of the first row. I had high expectations, and they kind of, well, half delivered my expectations. It was very well played by Lando, I think. When he was on pole, I kind of thought, oh no, what's the one thing Lando's really bad at? Race starts from pole. So I kind of had expected that to kind of go wrong. But he didn't have the greatest of starts because Oscar had a better initial start off the line, but Lando managed to keep first. But as soon as that first lap was done, I actually like eased off a bit, and I was like, okay, I actually think Lando's got this. Now that first lap is over, he's in control now. Because even when it's like a rolling start, Lando's a lot better at that than when he's starting from a standing start. So I had expected, that even if we had red flags and they decided to go rolling start, or if we had any safety cars, I knew that Lando had it in him to kind of take it to the end. And he very much proved my point because he went on to win the race. And at times I actually kind of kept forgetting that he was like leading. Because he just was doing such a great job that I didn't even like need to think about him. There was so much other stuff happening, that I kind of forgot that Lando was in control of this race. And I think that his pit stops were kind of timed at a good point as well. So like, hats off to McLaren for that strategy. So there were some really big positives from McLaren this weekend. I had predicted that Oscar was going to win. That's what I had in my mind before the weekend started. My prediction was Oscar to win, Max second, Charles Leclerc third. See, I got one thing right. I really had it in me that Oscar was going to have a really great home race. I just had this feeling, and I'm gutted that my manifestations did not come true. He, unfortunately, which we'll come on to a bit more later on, but he did have a little spin that kind of made him drop right to the back. He did finish in the points still. He finished in 9th after an incredible overtake on Lewis, but I was gutted. I was so upset. I'd gone to a spa for the weekend. If you didn't listen to our previous episode, I went to a spa, not the spa as in Belgium, as in a spa as in hotel, like a little retreat with my friend. And we went down for breakfast as I was still watching the Grand Prix and witnessed Oscar's mishap as we're eating breakfast. And I just, in the middle of this really nice restaurant, went, "No, Oscar!" So I'm sorry to everyone else that was there who wanted to watch the Grand Prix later when they got home and maybe thought I had just spoiled it for them, because I had. But I couldn't help it. I had to, I just had to be in that moment and express how I felt. So absolutely heartbroken for Oscar. I think he was doing a phenomenal job, and at one point I thought maybe he might attempt to overtake Lando for the win. It just wasn't meant to be for him this weekend, which is such a shame at his home Grand Prix. Yas, are you feeling the same way? Are you just heartbroken for Oscar? I know you're a big Oscar fan. And what are your thoughts on Lando this weekend?
Oh, I think what like hurts more is because Oscar, there were so many times where they that were like cut to Oscar and you would see him like lose kind of lose control of the car, but he would get it back, and this kept happening just because of how greasy it was out in the track. And just at this moment he just lost it, and he almost collided into, I think it was a Red Bull, I can't remember. um so it could have been a bigger accident where he couldn't have gotten back onto the track, but it was just seeing his car kind of beached and trying to get it back on track, trying to go forward, then reversing, and it was a painful watch. But to go from last to get it back into the points in 9th is still very impressive. There seems to be a thing with Australian drivers that they just seem to have a terrible luck at their home Grand Prix, which really sucks. Yeah, it was a shame, but the see Lando win, I think a lot of McLaren fans, well, kind of anyone who isn't a fan of Red Bull, was very happy at that Grand Prix that it wasn't Max back on the podium again, as it was close for him getting pole. But yeah, I mean, Lando handled it very well. There was some moments I thought, oh, I can like tell he's so unsure of himself, especially when I was talking about over the radio with, should we go to this tire? When should we pit? And him just basically saying, I don't know, guys. I'm trying to focus here. And we'll get to radios later on, especially when it comes to Ferrari. Yeah, we'll get to that in a wee minute. But yeah, McLaren out the gate very strong, and I think, to be honest, they're the team to watch this season. So we shall see. So moving on to the weather, rain. Me and Daniela, we know a lot about rain from where we are from. So the weather was, I mean, you couldn't make it up. Starting the race, track was greasy, and then the rain came on, then it was off, then it was back on again. I mean, the weather was, I think, what really messed up a lot of other drivers' drives, especially for the rookies who are not used to racing in the wet. Daniela, I know this is kind of not the nicest thing to say, but were you happy that kind of the rain came on to give us that entertainment? I know for me, I really enjoyed it, and any time I would see that we might have another spell of rain, I was like, yes, yes.
I think it definitely added to the drama and I think caused a lot of problems for a lot of drivers. I didn't realize at first it was going to be a wet race until Friday when someone at work mentioned it to me and was like, oh, it's going to be so exciting because it's going to be raining on Sunday. And I was like, raining? In Melbourne, really? And as I was watching it, all I could think about was, are we sure they're in Australia? Or are we not sure that they're at the British Grand Prix? Because this was just giving Silverstone vibes. I just felt like I was there. I knew exactly what to expect. It happened to me at the British Grand Prix. It rained so hard at the British Grand Prix that my contact lens fell out.
Oh
And
my
I
God.
it was crazy. I managed to catch it, but then I had to stand under someone's umbrella so I could put it back in. Um, I've never experienced anything like it, to the fact that it rained so hard that my contact lens fell out. So I was sat there thinking like, wow, this looks really familiar, but it's meant to be Australia. It's meant to be hot and sunny and warm and just such good vibes, and it didn't feel like it. Everyone looked really cold and miserable, and I felt so bad. Like, they were obviously like excited to be there, but everyone looked really cold. But in terms of like the rain, I think it really played a big factor into kind of the events that happened. I think it was hard for these rookies to kind of get to grips with wet and intermediate tires when it's just like the first time they're properly using them, and trying to also get to grips with handling the car, because they've had Bahrain testing, but that's not actually that much time in the car. So I think that they were going to struggle. I went into this weekend expecting that. I just didn't expect it to be as bad as it was.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people forget that these rookies, like, they don't get to test these cars in every single condition out there. It's usually just a dry track. It's not extreme heat and then really cold and then loads of like a greasy track and then loads of rain. Because I kind of forgot that myself going into this. I was like, oh wait, we have drivers that haven't experienced these conditions in these cars. Maybe in F2, then obviously they've experienced rainy conditions, but controlling a car that is so much more technical and powerful, I mean, that's going to be difficult for anyone. So really, my heart goes out to the rookies. And speaking of the rookies, shall we talk about their crashes and kind of the tragedy of the rookies? So first, let's talk about Isaac Hajar. I just, like, a moment of silence, like, my heart broke, especially with that moment with Anthony Hamilton. I mean, it is his first race, and I'm sure that man is still beating himself up over that mistake. But again, the conditions were just so impossible. I'll throw it to you, Daniela. Just
Yes.
again, reactions, thoughts. I mean, I think we're on the same level of just like, oh my God, I feel awful for him.
I felt awful, but then I also felt so bad that the last time that he was in a race was the F2 final race of the season. It was him versus Borsetto. 0.5 of a, no, half a point, not point, yeah, half a point between them. It's all down to this one race, and he stalled it on the grid. And my heart broke for him then, and I felt it all over again. I was like, it's the formation lap. You haven't even got to lap one. I just felt horrible. I sat there and I was like, this is rough. Like, this is not how you want to start off your F1 career. And already I sat there going, I know that Helmut Marko is going to have a few things to say about this. And then I saw some beautiful, lovely shots of Anthony Hamilton, who is Lewis Hamilton's dad, and Isaac Hadjar. And if you don't know this about Isaac Hadjar, he is a massive Lewis fan. There's some footage of him meeting Lewis at like their press day where they have all of their photos taken in their gear. And he got to shake Lewis's hand, and he looks so excited and so happy. And it's crazy to think that like that's the same guy that's going to be racing him this season. And so the fact that Lewis's dad went up to him and comforted him was he was very clearly upset. I thought was just a sweet, special moment that I feel like most people have kind of thought, you know what, like we need more moments like this in our sport because it is ruthless. It is crazy the amount of like discipline you need to have to be a driver and how harsh you are on yourself. And it felt so real and raw to see someone get upset, because I feel like a lot of the time it's like, nope, you can't be upset. You're risking your life every day, but you can't be upset. And I felt like that it was nice to actually see that. It just felt like I could relate to Isaac, and it kind of like poses that question again of like masculinity and like it's okay for men to cry, and I thought we needed to see that. And I think it's going to change kind of the way that people approach this sport in terms of this whole idea that, you know, they need to be masculine, not show emotion. I feel like it's so outdated now and just not a part of this conversation anymore. And I liked the fact that we got to see his vulnerable side and showcase how he was truly feeling in that moment. I know that there have been people who have not agreed with this. Helmut Marko is one of them, and he's come out and said some really awful things about it, saying that it was embarrassing for Isaac Hadjar to cry. I don't think that's true. I think that he was allowed to be emotional. How would you feel if that was your first race? I know I'd be really upset if that was my first race in F1 and that was how it ended. I didn't even make it into lap 1, you know? Yaz, what were your thoughts on Helmut Marko's comments?
To be honest, I thought they were quite disgusting, and it really irritated me because these drivers, these rookies, they give up everything to get into Formula One. They give up family time, they miss birthdays, they travel all around the world, they give up their money to this sport. So much sacrifice goes into it to get good and to get good enough to get into Formula One. And I really think with Isaac, like what happened was, again, it was just unlucky. It was conditions. It was the conditions of the track. And we saw, we saw Fernando Alonso, an experienced driver who has been racing as long as I've been alive, DNF and put it into the wall. So, I mean, if Fernando Alonso's doing it, then what do you expect of rookies? And I think that's what irritated me the most. Again, the pressure that these rookies and drivers have, and then to have someone just go, "Oh, it's embarrassing for you to cry." Like, what? What do you expect? I think it shows just how dedicated Isaac is and how dedicated again these drivers are to show emotion. Like, I don't think it's a bad thing at all, and I think that's something that we should get more comfortable with, as a sport and in all sports and in life in general. Like, if you're upset about something, don't be embarrassed to show it. And I feel like, it's the same thing with female drivers as well. Like, you don't want to come off as like too hormonal in a way, and with men, it's like, oh well, I don't want to come off as like weak and not masculine if I cry. Like, no, that you're allowed to cry. So I just felt awful for Isaac and Helmut Marko. You never fail to disappoint me and surprise me with your comments, and I really wish you would stop just talking in general. Thank you. Yeah,
I
so
completely agree. Sometimes I'm like, why did you feel the need to say that? Who asked you? Be quiet. Like, why did he always comes out with the most controversial comments, and I'm like, mate, you're so old, just retire. Like, people, we can find better talent. We don't need you. Like, the best thing you've done in your career is get Max Verstappen. I'm sure someone else can do that. I'm sure someone else can sit there and find the best talent, because they actually probably will know more than you do, because they will be an actual human being who care about emotions and will find someone who can cry and is a good driver, because just because you cry does not make you a bad driver. Isaac is great. We need to give him a chance. He's allowed to be upset. These things happen. We don't need to hear from you. Helmet, okay? We don't need it anymore. Everyone's done. We're moving on. You've had your time. We're past this now. We've got a whole new era of F1 fans. This is no longer a white, rich man sport. We're changing this dynamic. We're getting more women in. We're getting more people of colour in. We're changing the sport for the better. We don't need more people like Helmut Marko. We need less of that and more of raw emotion.
Period. Period. Let's just cut that up and just send it to him, because the thing is that I don't even think like Helmut Marko gets asked these questions. I honestly think he just gathers people like media and go, I have something to say, even though nobody here asked me my opinion. Here it is. But yeah, that man is frustrating, and we will not let him take up any more of our time because he does not deserve it. So continuing on with kind of just the chaos of Australia with crashes, who should we go on to next? I mentioned Fernando Alonso, so let's go to
Jack Doohan.
Jack Doohan. Literally, it's like, can we just spin a wheel? Pick a driver from the grid, because I think we had like 6 DNFs, 5 DNFs. Jack Doohan. Again, another Australian. He just had the worst luck. I feel bad for Jack Doohan, because a lot of talk is kind of around Jack Doohan at the minute, and a lot of people already wanting him out of the sport, which is really irritating to me, because he hasn't even had a chance to prove himself. Daniela, just your thoughts on kind of this kind of hate campaign on him when he hasn't even gotten far into his F1 career, and also just about how unlucky he was in Australia.
It made me so angry. I had to do some research on the rookies for the Channel 4 F1 coverage last week, and I typed in Jack Doohan's name into Google. I think, Yaz, I sent you some screenshots of this because I was very angry. The first things that popped up were like, when is Jack Doohan being replaced? How many races is Jack Doohan going to last? Why is Jack Doohan in F1? The comments were ridiculous. Like, Jack Doohan doesn't deserve this seat. Like, it was really horrible stuff I was reading. And I just could not take it. Like, I was like, imagine sitting there and like you Google your name and these are all the things that come up. There was videos, there was articles. It was like frankly disgusting. I was like, why is this necessary? He's worked his way up to get here, like any other driver has. He's got the seat he's waited a long time for. He took a season out of racing with the hopes of coming back and getting a seat. Like Oscar said in the press conference, like, it's really hard when you take a year out. And I think he's right, and it's unfair that Jack's getting all of this hate, and he's not even like, he's done 1 Grand Prix to his name. He had 1 Grand Prix to his name, and people are continuously slating him. We've not even given him a chance. We've not even seen what he can do yet. Australia wasn't the right place for any of those rookies to debut because the conditions were horrific. 1 wrong move, and that was it. They were into the wall. Some of it was because, the paint on the floor is paint that is made for an actual road, not a track. And it was slippery, and they were sliding off. And then there was also, I was looking into this, like, torque mapping issues. So they were pressing the accelerator slightly, and that was changing everything. Some of it was not their fault. Some of it was the lack of experience in those cars and being adjusted to those cars and how those cars work in those conditions. They've not really had the opportunity to drive these cars in those conditions. So to sit here and then just spout Jack all of this hate for no reason, I do not understand, and I've read a lot of articles, I do not understand where this hatred has come from. Yes, he has a dad who is a world champion in motorbike racing, but it doesn't change the fact that that makes him any less being good at his sport. He still has incredible career behind him already. I think we need to give him a chance. I'm sick and tired of reading all these articles and seeing all these horrible comments. Where's your evidence to back this up that he is not good when he's only had 2 races in F1? Yes, he didn't score points his debut like Kimi Antonelli, but that doesn't make him any worse off as a driver compared to Kimi. You could say it about all of the rookies. I don't see it. It just really makes me angry.
It's just not fair. I think, it doesn't matter who your dad is or kind of where you come from. You're given this opportunity, and we as fans should give them that chance, give them the opportunity to see how good they actually are. And I know a lot of people are going, well, Calapinto did so well last season, and we really love to see him. I'm like, okay, I understand that, but he's not in this season right now. So let Jack do his thing and leave that poor man alone. He seems so lovely. Leave him alone. I'm totally with you. It frustrates me so much when even if a rookie messes up a couple of times in his career, the scrutiny, that's all you will hear. You will not hear the amazing results that they have throughout the season. So let me breathe, let me relax. The frustration. So moving on, shall we talk about Liam Lawson? I know this is gonna hurt, Daniela. I know this is gonna really hurt you.
This did really hurt me.
Just another moment where I had my head in my hands going, what is happening this Grand Prix? Who else? Liam, no. Yeah, this hurt again. Just, Daniela, do you want to take it from here? I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah,
I'll
take it from here. So Liam already started from the pit lane, right? Is that correct? Yeah. Because they changed his rear wing. They added more rear wing. I don't fully understand. I've just listened to Ted talking about it, and that's how he described it. So that's what I'm going to say.
I didn't really understand it either. I'm not a technical girly, so I was a bit confused with, okay, more rear wing? Okay, but maybe not.
Yeah. I have no idea what it actually means and how you can have more rear wing, but he did. But Ted said it made him slower, and I agree. He just had no pace pretty much the whole time up until his spin into the wall. And I think that he had no chance of redeeming himself. Which is not great when you're starting your first race in one of the biggest seats in Formula One right now. The one seat that has got so much chatter around it, the one seat that is arguably either the best or worst, depending on how you look at it. I couldn't imagine how it must have felt to have been Liam, because the amount of pressure that's on him, knowing that, this time last year, there was talk of Daniel Ricciardo taking that seat. You had Checo Perez in that seat. Now Liam's in that seat, and it's all chaotic regarding that one particular seat. And I knew that Liam wanted to prove himself, because already there's doubts about whether he's going to be good enough against Max. And I do wholeheartedly believe, and I still believe this, but maybe I am just a Liam Lawson fan, so maybe I am being biased, but I do think he still has potential to battle Max out. If we give him a couple of races, I think that he will be challenging Max. So it did break my heart to see him crash on his debut for Red Bull. I was like, oh, no, Liam, really, you as well? Because it happened to so many people. But I think at this point it was kind of inevitable. I'm actually surprised that we had still got 14 cars actually survive this race, because it seemed to be a universal problem for everyone that the same thing was kind of happening. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I thought he was a lot slower, and that pressure, and again, like you said, being Max Verstappen's teammate, that's not easy for anyone, and the pressure of that alone is immense. So for your first race to have a crash, yeah, I saw a lot of, oh, he was just overrated this entire time. Look, he's already screwed up all over my social media. But I think no matter what result out of any of the drivers at this race, it is the first race of this season. I mean, come on. We are going to see drivers put it into the wall again. We are going to see tricky conditions again, and we are going to see more mistakes and people up and down the grid. So I just felt so bad for Liam because, again, we were so hyped for him getting into Red Bull, and to see him out in track and just for it to be cut short, it doesn't feel good. And again, for him to be starting at basically like the pit lane, not a good start to the season. So for our last rookie, before we get on to Carlos Sainz, let's talk about Gabriel. Oh my gosh. His crash kind of confused me a bit with his like suspension.
Yeah.
I was rewatching it before we hopped onto the podcast here, and it still kind of does. I'm like, did it snap and then he crashed? It was just the Kick Sauber, that car just as a whole, I think is hanging on by like sellotape. It makes me anxious seeing those cars on the grid. Again, I feel so bad for him. But yeah, Daniela, the suspension, the way it crashed, like, what are your opinions and thoughts on that? Because I am still confused.
The only thing I can think of is that he must have hit a curb or something else not long before that corner for the suspension to then break before he actually hit the wall. But I haven't yet seen an angle that shows that. I've seen the angle of him, like, you could see the suspension breaking, but I haven't seen the before where he could have potentially have damaged it. But I think it was Alex Jakes that I heard say this, like, said that he must have gone into the corner already, having gone over a curve for it to have broken, but I haven't seen it to kind of say whether that is what happened. That was just in the live commentary on F1 TV / Channel 4. So I don't know what happened, and I can't understand how it broke any other way than it kind of being damaged beforehand and that weakening it. It was just very weird, and it almost felt like it was very out of control for him, like he just didn't have any control of the situation and was almost the passenger. It was hard to witness that because it looked actually quite like a ferocious, aggressive crash that he didn't really have any say in. I'm the same. I just can't get my head around the whole suspension thing. I need to do more research into it and kind of work out how it happened.
I really hope this isn't like just a fault with the Cybers, because that would be so dangerous and so scary as a driver to have basically no control and just see yourself just pummeling forward and just, yeah, very scary. Again, as nothing that he could have done. I feel like I'm going to say it again and again and again throughout this race recap, but a lot of drivers, kind of their DNFs and bad results are down to just how it happened. Just bad luck, really, and just being out of control, really, with their cars. And another person that was completely out of control, and our last DNF that we are to cover, Carlos Sainz. Let's just say my mum is a huge Carlos Sainz fan, if you are unaware. You honestly would have thought that someone shot my mother when she saw Carlos Sainz in the wall. She was heartbroken, literally going, no, as she saw it in slow motion. Again,
Your
Carlos...
poor brother being asleep.
Literally, Daniela, I was like, Mom, shush, quiet, he's upstairs. He has work. But yes, we were all trying to keep as quiet as we can while watching this. But yeah, my mum was heartbroken. Yeah, I kind of laughed because it's funny just seeing how attached my mum is to Carlos Sainz. But yes, Carlos, I felt so bad for him because he, again, like most drivers, just lost it and was in the wall. And unfortunately, that was the end of his race. Um, Carlos Sainz was a driver that I'm really looking forward to seeing throughout the season. Not the start that he wants, but hopefully he will get those results back. Daniela, do you think that this is kind of Carlos's year, even though, again, really poor start that he had in Australia, but we talk so much about Carlos and his potential uh with testing, with preseason testing, and just kind of him as a whole. Like, just kind of what are your thoughts for Carlos going into this season?
I think Williams have shown that they really have the pace, especially with Alex Albon finishing in fifth. I think that this could be a really great year for Williams, and I think it helps having Carlos as well. And I think that he does have potential to have a really solid year. I'm not going to say he's going to be incredible because he's in a Williams, he's not in a Ferrari. But saying that, I was so impressed with like Williams as a whole this weekend. Their qualifying performance, their Q3 appearance, Alex then getting P5. I do think that they have a lot to prove, but they also are going to show that, like they are doing a lot better than they were if we look like 4 years ago, for example. And I'm excited to see what Carlos can do with that car because I think that Alex already pushes that car to its limit, and I feel like Carlos is going to give it that extra. He's got something about him that I just feel like he knows how to make a car go the extra mile, and he's definitely going to do that. I think this weekend it was just a hiccup. I think he'll come back stronger in China, and I'm actually really excited to see what he can do. And I think that China is going to be a really great race for Williams. I just have this feeling. I say I have this feeling, and then I said that about Oscar and Jack Doohan and Fernando Alonso. So I could be very, very wrong about this, but I do think that they have potential to have a really great season, and I'm very excited for them.
We are remaining optimistic. We have to remain optimistic because if we don't, then it's not the Fast Lane Collective. And it's Daniela isn't a part of this because Daniela always remains optimistic. So moving on, strategy. Oh, wow. I mean, where do we start? As strategy just kind of went out the window for I think most teams, but especially with Ferrari, Max, and McLaren, they all had a different tire strategy when the rain came, and kind of from lap 44 onwards. Daniela, Ferrari were at it again. They were at it again.
Already, I found it hard because like Max decided to stay out a bit longer, and I was like, "No, Max, that's the wrong call. That is the wrong call. You're gonna struggle. The rain is coming. You're gonna struggle." And he admitted, "I am struggling. I'm gonna come back in." But you know who didn't? The Ferraris. They're like, "No, we're gonna stay out," and I'm like, "You're staying out? Are you serious? Get yourself in those pits now." I was so angry. I was like, "Ferrari, please don't do this to me. Don't break my heart. Come on." I wouldn't say it worked in their favor, but at least they didn't DNF. Like they still had a solid result, but I really was like, "Hey, this is silly," because McLaren I feel like did the right thing. Lando came in, he pitted, he went back out again. When Max said he was gonna stay out, I was like, "Oh dear, Max, I really don't think that's the right choice." But you do you. You're gonna know a lot more than I do. I say this as I've literally just said that I was really annoyed at Ferrari, but I did have like faith. I was like, hey, if anyone can prove themselves in this wet and can like literally turn this whole thing around, it's gonna be Max. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to put my faith in him, even though I still do think this is a bad call. He then did decide to come in, which I think was eventually the right call, and managed to keep hold of that onto that P2. Ferrari, you let me down again. You could have done greatness if you'd gone into the pits and changed those tires. Yaz, how are you feeling about Ferrari? Are you on the same wavelength as me?
Can we just end the podcast here? I don't want to talk about this. I get so annoyed because every year I think we're not going to have moments like this. They're going to grow as a team, even though they're like the oldest team on the grid and should have this shit down to a T. This is like literally your blood. Like, you should know this. You should know this. Oh my God. Okay. Calm down, calm down. I really will need a drink after this. But yes, like Ferrari, come on. like you have so much money to have the hire good strategists, and again, like I said, we've been here, we've done this, we know how this goes. And I know, again, first race of the season, like there's still time, but I just keep getting flashbacks from key moments throughout my like F1 fan life of watching Ferrari make these mistakes, and I just can't help but feel so frustrated. Oh, yeah, Ferrari, stop. Stop. I don't want to be a Ferrari fan. I don't want you to do well. I wish I didn't care, but I do care.
But everyone's a Ferrari fan. In the words of
No,
Sebastian Vettel.
not anymore. I don't think Ferrari have a fan base left unless you're Italian. It's just, it's hard watch, and like I'm just repeating myself at this point, but I want to scream at a wall. With Max, yes, I kind of was like, oh no, Max, this is not the right call. And with the team, they also kept saying, okay, then stay out, and it was really just touch and go, and you were kind of waiting for that next red flag or that next crash in a way. But just because of just how much chaos was happening in between all of the strategy calls and cars crashing, and it was really one for the books, this Australian Grand Prix. I mean, we haven't gotten 3 red flags like the 2023 Australian flag, but race, sorry, but we had a lot of moments. So strategy, it was touch and go, especially for Ferrari. But one more thing that I want to mention with kind of strategy and communication from driver to team. Again, coming back to Ferrari, because who else will we be talking about? Just the calls with Lewis, like you could hear him trying so hard to not sound pissed off when they were asking like really stupid questions. Danielle, do you also think Lewis is just so used to having like Bono, and Bono knows exactly what Lewis wants to hear and what Lewis doesn't want to hear? Do you think this is kind of like a teething issue with his transition to Ferrari?
Yes, I did not want to put any pressure on us. Not that I could personally put pressure on him, he does not exist. But I was like, okay, I'm not going to have any high expectations for Lewis because he has only ever driven a Mercedes-Benz powertrained car in his whole F1 career. He's been in F1 for 18 years and that's all he's ever known. So I was like, okay, this is going to be a different ball game. He's going to have a different powertrain. He's going to have a different car. He's going to have a different team. He's going to have a different engineer. Everything's gone out the window. He's been with the team for so long. They know exactly how he works. They know exactly what he likes, what he doesn't like. They built the whole team essentially around him. And now he's jumped ship to a team that don't know how he works. He doesn't know how they work. So I kind of sat here and went, I'm not gonna have any expectations. I don't know what Lewis is gonna do. He's just gonna surprise me. If he gets in the points, I'll take that as a win. And that is essentially what happened. He finished in 10th. But I didn't want to put that pressure out in the universe because I just knew that he needed to take the time to adjust this team, because I can't imagine what that's like to go from being with a team that literally knows you so well to being with a team that doesn't know anything about how you like your setup, how you want your engineer to speak to you, how much notes they give you, how much do they tell you about something. Do you want more of that, less of that? They're not going to know until they've had at least half a season together. And I think that was kind of proven this weekend. Would you agree?
100%, yeah. I mean, yeah, teething issues, it's gonna be there. And also, you know what? You have to kind of give it to Lewis as well, because I expected Lewis, like, again, you could hear it in his voice, him trying to control his anger, I guess, because again, he's trying to focus on a race, so much pressure, and with the conditions and just all that pressure. But I was surprised because I kind of expected Lewis to kind of lose his temper a bit more at his team, because I think he's had it so good for so long. I know Mercedes haven't been at the top of their game, but with just knowing his team and knowing the people around him, he's got that extra pressure now of having none of that, like you mentioned. So I kind of have to give it to Lewis to not being like you're an idiot, just do this. He was very firm, but you have to be. So now that they've had this first race, hopefully next race, now his engineer knows what not to say when, or say phrase something in a different way. But yes, Lewis finished 10th, which isn't the result that he probably wanted, of course, especially when George Russell and came third and Antonelli came fourth. So definitely is probably feeling a bit sore inside. I think Lewis, seeing Mercedes do so well, but still early days in the season. But talking about Mercedes, Antonelli, let's just Antonelli. Out of all the rookies, I think he was the only one that finished.
Apart from Behrman. Behrman finished
Apart
as
from
well.
Berman. Yes, apart from Berman. I kind of forgot how many rookies we have there as well. Also, Ollie Berman for completely like not having a car a day before the Grand Prix. He did pretty well. But yes, Antonelli did incredibly well, finished fourth. After the race, well, during the race, he was given a penalty, so he was bumped down the fifth, but that was all taken away. So he has finished fourth in the standings. I mean, just incredible, an incredible first race. Daniela, thoughts? I mean, just incredible after having that spin that he had as well. He really is one to watch this season.
Definitely. He had a very like mixed bag of a race. Like there were highs and certainly lows. But he had some really great overtakes on Nico Hulkenberg, which to me kind of like I know he's in a Mercedes, but to me it really went okay. This guy is good. Like I can see the hype. Now I did follow him in F2 and he didn't have the greatest season, but even then I could see like he had potential. But this like really solidified it for me. I was like, you're good. I like these moves. And so I was like, okay, this is gonna be good. This is gonna be great. I was not expecting a P4 finish, I won't lie. Even before the spin, I was not expecting it. He wasn't even in the points. He had the spin. He dropped all the way back and then made his way back up to fourth. And I just sat here and I was like, God, he's good. Like, if he can do that, what else can he do? So I am quite excited. I had doubts about Kimi. I was like, oh, he's only 18. Is he going to be quite ready? Like, it's a lot of pressure on young shoulders. He's going to prove me wrong in the first round of the season. So I'm hoping that it's going to only get better from here.
And I think you're right. I think it will get better from here. I mean, I was the same as you. I was like, he's so young, and to invest so early into somebody when, they're so young, they haven't experienced an F1 car and had that come up. Like a lot of other rookies, say that 3 times fast. So I was really impressed with just how he was able to maintain his cool and just come in fourth. And I know you could say, well, you had so many other DNFs, that's why he got fourth. No, this man put in the effort, put in the work, and like you said, had that spin and had to make his way all the way back up the grid. I mean, just incredible stuff. I mean, well done, Kimmy. Just incredible. And I think you could kind of see it in his post-race interviews. He was like, yeah, I did okay. I did okay for my first race. So incredible stuff. And I cannot wait to see where he goes throughout Formula One. I really think he's going to just wow us, hopefully. I don't want to like jinx it because I feel like when I start to say this about a driver, it goes downhill. So I'm just going to positive energy. Daniela, do some manifesting. I know you're very good.
Okay. Yeah, I would give some manifestation. I wanted to ask you, Yaz, who were your overrated and underrated driver for this weekend? This is a new segment that we're bringing to the table. We're each going to go around and say a driver that was overrated and underrated. So maybe someone that we like hasn't been the biggest talking point, or you had high hopes for and didn't do as well as you were expecting, or you didn't expect them to do as well as they did. Who are you going to go for this weekend?
I'm going to say Charles Leclerc for overrated. I expected him to do a lot better than he did, and he still outqualified his team. Not outqual. Well, he still finished higher in this than Lewis, 100%. But I don't know. I think I just expected more from Ferrari as a whole. I guess that would be my overrated team as well. I really expected more from them, but they kind of just fell flat, and you could kind of put that down to their strategy. But for me, Charles was kind of just lost throughout the race, which was a bit disappointing. Yeah, I just don't feel like he was on his A game, and same with qualifying as well, which was disappointing. Underrated, I'm gonna say, is George Russell. I mean, he was on the podium and he did really well. Like, again, when I was watching the Sky Sports broadcast, and there was like no mention of George Russell until I think he crossed the line, and it was like, oh yeah, by the way, George is P3. And I was like, oh, I kind of forgot about him throughout the race, but it just seemed to like avoid the chaos that kept happening throughout this track and the race as a whole. So really good stuff for Mercedes as a team as well. Like a brilliant result. Like I was mentioned earlier, I'm sure Lewis is kind of kicking himself a wee bit at the moment, but yeah, that would be mine for me. What about you, Danielle? What are you thinking?
So my overrated was the same. Charles Leclerc. I just was expecting a little bit more. I thought, I had predicted him to be third, so I was quite disappointed with his performance. I know that kind of strategy played into it. I was expecting him to kind of prove himself more up against Lewis. I was expecting like a bigger gap between them. A lot of the time they were kind of almost like together, like throughout a lot of the race. So I had expected a little bit more from him. Underrated. This is going to be extremely controversial. And I can't believe I'm saying this. And Yaz, I don't think you have any idea what I'm going to say. You look so confused.
I have no clue. Go for it.
I can't believe I'm saying this at all, but my underrated for the Australian Grand Prix is Lance Stroll, who finished in 6th.
Oh my god, end the call. Let me just leave.
I just was not expecting it. I was expecting a no points finish and found him in 6th, and I don't think he was spoken about the whole race. And I just wanted to shout that out because obviously Alonso didn't do well. He scored points for his team when he didn't have Alonso by his side to kind of do all the work for him. So well done, Lance. You've actually done a decent job. So that's why he's my underrated driver of the weekend.
Yeah, I kind of agree. In my mind, I kind of forgot about Lance as well. So yeah, good. Oh, sorry, my laptop, the charger just fell out. So sorry if you heard that in the recording. But yeah, he actually surprised me as well. See, when I saw the Aston Martin in the wall, I went, Lance. Oh my gosh, oh, it's Fernando. Oh, so yeah, you make a great point. We should give Lance his praise.
Yes, for this one chance only.
Yes, only.
I do have one final aspect to bring to the podcast before we head out. ChatGPT predicts. Now, unfortunately, ChatGPT I don't think knows the driver lineup for this season. I've been having a little conversation as we've been going around this podcast, warming ChatGPT up to ask the question of, who do you predict is going to be on the podium for this weekend? And I will read you what ChatGPT has said. Okay, so to win the race, Max Verstappen, because Red Bull has been incredibly strong and Max is on top form. The Shanghai circuit should suit the strengths of the car, especially with the long straights and corners that allow their aerodynamics and power to shine. He's likely to be at the front again. In P2, and this proves that ChatGPT knows nothing. Lewis Hamilton, because Mercedes, he's no longer at Mercedes, because Mercedes has been improving this season and the track has a good mix of straights and corners where Mercedes could show better performance. Hamilton's consistency and experience of this type of track could show him in a strong position. ChatGPT, he's no longer at Mercedes.
That's a
Oh,
shame.
oh
'Cause
dear.
I actually really like this little segment that we have
So
because
do I.
it's
Maybe
just like,
Brianna can make it work better. She's like
yeah,
ChatGPT's friend, so maybe she'll teach ChatGPT that Lewis is at Ferrari.
yeah,
And number 3,
Brianna can work it like a lot better than I can, so
yeah,
we need to bring Brianna back next
yeah,
week.
Brianna is so good. She can sweet talk ChatGPT and comes up with like the craziest things. I don't know how she does it. I'm filling in this week, so I'm sorry that this segment is not going to be as up to standard as it would be if Brianna was here. But for P3, Lando Norris. If McLaren continues the upward trajectory and has a solid weekend, Norris could be fighting for a podium finish. He's quick, and the McLaren has been looking more competitive, so top 3 isn't out of the question for him. So,
Well,
there we have it.
we tried. So yeah, that is all for this Australian Grand Prix recap. I mean, we had a lot to talk about, so thank you so much for staying with us and listening to our thoughts and opinions. Next week, we also have F1 Academy coming out, so please stay tuned for our episode on that. And we will be watching the Chinese Grand Prix. So excited to finally be back at this track. I mean, it's a stellar track. Daniela, have you missed this track as well?
Yes, I really enjoyed it last year because last year was the first year that I'd properly watched a Chinese Grand Prix. So I'm excited for it to be back again. F1 Academy is back this weekend too. If you want to know all things F1 Academy, you can listen to our podcast episode that will be out after this one. And we'll be discussing all things F1 Academy, the new season, who the driver lineup is, ready for the Chinese Grand Prix. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.
See you then. Bye.
Hello, fly chick coming through. Nice to meet you, glad you came too. Like you said when you know you got moves.